You're listening to the most fraudulent F1 podcast with Dan, aka Engine Mode 11.
I secretly moonlight as Helmut Marko at race weekends.
And Blake, aka Brrrake.
Echo chambers of farts and idiots on Twitter after races.
It's the engine breaking F1 podcast.
Boom. No AI generated introduction today, I'm afraid.
That was pretty spicy last week. And
it was.
I think about it every time I listen to that intro, and when you're talking about being Helmut Marko, I'm cracking up in the background, and it's in the recording, and it just, oh my god, that is some of the most fraudulent stuff ever. Yeah. And I'm here for it.
First episode, I think, was that not from our first episode? I think.
Yeah, it was. But everybody that's tuned in, welcome to the Engine Breaking Podcast. My name's Brrrake. Actually, my name's Blake, but aka Brrrake, and this is Dan, aka Engine Mode 11, our Twitter fraud meme lord himself.
Cheers.
Is that a Monster and a Red Bull top?
Yeah, I'm wearing a Red Bull shirt while drinking the Lewis Hamilton limited edition Monster can.
I love that, man.
And wearing a pink sparkly hat, and I don't give a shit. So
wow.
Hey, this is how I want to express myself, right? Live with it.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Honestly, I think it's great, but I don't know which fan base is probably gonna beat the crap out of you first for that kind of infringement.
Bring them all on, mate. Bring them all on. I can throw some hands, mate. I'm from Stevenage.
Does anybody actually enjoy the taste of Monster?
I prefer it over Red Bull. Yeah.
Really? Oh my God,
shocking revelation.
You can't say that.
No, the only reason I drank it for 6 years is because it was free.
Fair enough.
Now I got to pay for it. Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna get that big manly can. Let's go. But if anybody's new tuning into the episode for this first time, my name's Blake. Dan, and this is Dan. We both used to work at Red Bull Racing for an age. Between us, what is it, about 15, 16 years in Formula One? A little bit of performance engineering, some senior systems engineering, just basically shithousing our way through it. And
stealing a living,
But now I think, but Dan's got a normal human job now, and I'm a full-time degenerate content creator, trying my best to make educational, entertaining Formula One content. And this podcast is where we you're gonna get a mix of everything, like a little bit of fraudulence, which is very, very close to your heart. A little bit of tech, a little bit of myth debunking, because I figure, between both of us, spending quite a bit of time in the industry and kind of understanding how it goes on, we can make some jokes, we can have some laughs, and also dispel some nonsense that's going around and have a fun time while we're doing it. And everybody's welcome, even though Dan's wearing a Red Bull shirt. Oh my god.
Yeah. Listen, we are the best, worst F1 podcast out there.
Yep, exactly. So this episode, obviously, we're going to talk about the Spanish Grand Prix, but I want to talk a little bit about the Detroit Grand Prix, the IndyCar race of the weekend, because there's some interesting things, some comments from Will Power, who had a really, really good race, saying F1 is a joke as far as competition. And we're going to weigh in on that, because I have some thoughts on that. And yeah.
That's what every F1 reject says, though, isn't it?
Oof, bold. Big toot, Will Power. But we'll go into the Spanish Grand Prix and qualifying and the race. Aston Martin and Ferrari disappeared. What happened? Mercedes, Dan, do you think they're back on form? Does it look like they're back on form?
I'm not going to spoiler it so close into the episode.
All right, let's just
stick around to find out Dan's expert shitty opinion.
Oh my goodness. We also had some questions again on the overtaking guidelines and penalties, and there's a lot to talk about. And then at the end of that, what are we going to do? We're going to put a couple people on roast, on the grill, on the fraud watch list. We're going to give some props to some engine mode good boys. And Dan and I have been tasked last weekend with doing report cards for 2 teams to prove that we can not be biased. I'm so biased. But report cards for AlphaTauri from Dan, and I've got Mercedes this week. So please nobody try to kill me. What do we got? So let's before we get into all that, there's been a little bit of news. We always like to keep our finger on the pulse on the world of Formula One tabloids and everything else going on. What do we got?
Oh, the big one. McLaren have stolen. They ram raided reception of Milton Keynes, like the Trophy Thieves did a few years ago, and they have stolen Rob Marshall from Red Bull. So Rob Marshall, if you don't know who he is, he's been around at Red Bull for 17 years, pretty much the beginning. Was he the chief engineering officer? I think was his last official title.
Yeah, he's
really
like,
nice guy.
He's like, I'm the CEO, and they're like, no, not that CEO. No, I'm the CEO. Trust me.
Yeah, he's the CEO, but the E is the not capital E. It's the small E. But yeah, no, he's a real nice guy, and it's a bit of a coup, I think, for McLaren to snatch Rob. So he's going to be joining them in January 2024 as their technical director of engineering and design.
Ooh, Rob, I met Rob when I joined Red Bull. Super nice dude, really curious into all the clever bits, and he was definitely one of the people that was like quite far up overseeing the technical projects. But I'm pretty sure in the last couple of years he's kind of started splitting up his work, working on stuff with Red Bull Advanced Technologies and other projects as well. So he's had his hands in quite a few projects over the last few years, but really nice dude, super clever bloke as well. So hopefully he can help teach them a thing or two. But let's see, so that's another is this part of the McLaren reshuffle that we've been talking about for the past couple of months?
Yes, I believe he's the last piece of the McLaren shuffle puzzle.
Ooh, nah, there'll be more. There's going to be more.
What's the reverse? The McLaren reverse Jenga. He's the last piece they've put back into the bottom of the tower or something. I don't know.
That shit's about to fall over.
Yeah.
Well, is that a little bit of foreshadowing for later in the episode? Oof. What else we got? We've got some interesting, and I didn't see this one coming at all. We've got some very interesting discussions between multiple teams trying to. Do you want to form an alliance? What's going on there? I don't understand this at all. Tell me what you know about this.
Well, so basically, Alfa Romeo called Gunter, and then Gunter got on the phone. I need to call Jane. And apparently in Monaco, there's been a meetup with Steiner and Alfa Romeo CEO. Right, brace yourself, people. Jean-Philippe Imparato, which is probably completely wrong because everyone loves to point out when I'm completely fuck up.
Yeah, it's like, come on, he's English. He's not European in it.
Yeah, I struggle with people that are from the north, let alone fucking different countries. Anyway.
JPI we'll call him for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it's what we're now 29 episodes, and I still ain't got a fucking clue what Blake's saying, chat. So yes, Haas and Alfa Romeo look like they're gonna possibly link up. Because obviously Alfa Romeo are getting booted out from Sauber. Why did that name completely fucking blank me then? He was also in the garage as well, completely changing topic. Did you see him?
Peter Sauber.
Yeah, he was in the garage this weekend.
Mr. Clean.
So yes. Yeah. Sauber, sorry, fuck, so we're completely
Sauber is clean.
Rails, chat.
Sauber is clean in German.
If anyone had pre-10 minutes before this show went completely off the rails, then congratulations, you've won. No, it makes sense, right? Alfa Romeo obviously leaving because Sauber are becoming Audi Works team.
Yep.
Alfa Romeo close to Ferrari, Haas close to Ferrari, makes sense, right?
Yeah, that whole thing makes sense, and I didn't see where that was going, but now that you explained that, it's like, oh, I forgot. So it's not Alfa Romeo, the Sauber team, and Haas talking. It's literally like, hi, we might want to make you Alfa Romeo Haas, which is great because then we don't have an American team in Formula One. I hate you guys.
Yeah, we want to basically stick a sticker on your car, paint it red, and then pay you a lot of money a year.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, Haas obviously have close ties to Ferrari from their technical partnership. They get gearbox, suspension bits, engines, obviously, and then I guess that all makes sense. I was like, where's this going? But yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of buying teams, what about selling drivers? We got a little bit of everything on the a la carte menu tonight.
Toto Wolff has been talking about Mick Schumacher, and he was quite vocal in a way, like, in terms of saying, like, he wants Mick Schumacher in at Williams, but in not quite such a blunt way. He said that Logan Sargent's basically in the way, stopping from Mick being in a Williams. which I thought was a bit, a bit strong for Toto. But I suppose, he's got to find a seat for his driver. And then they said, okay, well, Toto said, he's not going to get it back into F1 until 2025 at the earliest. Right.
So
hear me out.
Go on. Do you have a conspiracy theory, Dan?
I don't have a conspiracy theory. It's more of a, why don't you just fucking put him in DTM for a year?
Yeah. Or
why are you just going to have him sitting on the sidelines? Or Mercedes have got a DTM team, haven't they?
Yeah. Wait, does DTM even exist anymore? Because didn't it turn into, I don't actually follow it. Didn't it turn into like GT3 and then kind of something else and then that? Somebody in chat will know. Or why not just stick him in Super Formula? They're faster than an F2 car, slower than a Formula 1 car. Get him out of the house a little bit. He can go hang out with Liam Lawson. But I reckon Liam would absolutely dust the floor with him, and he just wouldn't want to think about doing Formula 1 after that. Okay, yeah, so apparently...
Someone said Indy as well. Why don't you go do a year in Indy? I don't know. It just seems a bit odd that you want your driver to have a seat for next year, but it has to be F1 or nothing.
Well,
it's like, well...
After this weekend,
it doesn't have to be.
Toto runs Bottas's thing. Why does he be like, all right, Bottas, you're out? But to be fair, he did have a messed up car, apparently. But, yeah, I don't know. I find Mick Schumacher very likable. It just doesn't seem like he's got that killer instinct. Like, on the spectrum of the Dark Lord himself to a very kind and gentle person.
Yeah.
Not maybe, the Dark Lord himself.
Chat is saying, why didn't they put him in the Clio Cup? I think that was reserved for George Russell, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like, right, go take your aggression out on this door banging. I love it. Yeah. But, right. And I saw this. Did you see how much flack F1 and Sky were getting over the weekend for this?
I did, yeah. And I don't really understand why, because this is a brilliant incentive that I think appeals to 90% of F1 Twitter. And that is F1 and Sky to create bespoke Hungarian GP coverage for children.
But there are some technical superpowers who have very new to the sport, but the thing about some of these new people into the sport is they take on information so rapidly, and they are actually on par with Adrian Newey in terms of technical insight on the internet. It's outstanding, but taking the piss a little bit on this. F1 and Sky are going to make content for children for the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is awesome, which is actually awesome. Imagine if, as a young fan of the sport, you're like, oh, now that I've got something more accessible for my kids. How did you start? It's a question for you then, Dan. How did you start watching Formula 1? Because not to say that the way children consume content now is the same as the way they do it then, but how did you start watching Formula 1?
Well, back in my day when I used to have to walk 6 miles to school.
Shut up.
And watch it on my black and white telly. No, how did I? No, I didn't really seriously follow F1 until I was sort of in my later teens, because I was more of a endurance fan, and I was just like, F1, yeah, whatever. So, I mean, as a kid, I wasn't really. Sometimes it'd be on like the free-to-air channels and in the background, but I didn't really pay a huge amount of attention to it. But no, I think it's a good incentive, and I think give it a couple of weeks, and we're gonna basically replace me and you with my 2 daughters. They can just fucking run the podcast. Me and you can retire. Bollocks, we're done. Yeah,
exactly. But okay. So what's the ins and outs of it? What does it look like? What does the new Formula 1 coverage for kiddos look like?
Let me get my my best. I didn't copy and paste this from a press release voice on.
But it's cool.
The UK broadcast will feature presenters of the Sky Kids show FYI, Braden and Scarlett and go-karter Zach, who will join 2016 F1 champion Nico Rosberg.
Same machinery Rosberg.
Yeah. Nico, I beat Lewis Hamilton and equal machinery Rosberg, and Danica Patrick to create F1 Juniors.
Okay.
So again, that, I'm very happy for Yuki that he's getting a show just for him.
My God.
I waited until you took a sip of your drink to say that, and
yeah, I almost spat that into my Go XLR and need to get a new microphone. There goes 500 quid down the drain. You're a dickhead.
The series will create a dedicated international feed featuring bespoke graphics and sound effects for the broadcast. Right, I'll tell you what those sound effects are going to be, mate.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, and here's the team radio from Yuki. And that's the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why won't my... Wait, wrong button. Hold on. Is it?
Nothing like some live troubleshooting.
Yuki, can you explain this one?
No, but this burger sucks.
Yeah. That's it.
But hey, look, there's more. Listen, if you thought that sounded exciting, listen, there's more.
Okay.
An additional quirk is the placing of 3D augmented graphics, which are planned to feature on specific camera angles in much the same way that some advertisements are positioned trackside through the use of CGI.
That's going to be really interesting. Maybe for for the Hungarian Grand Prix watch along, I'll watch the kids feed and see what it's like. Because I think that could be awesome. But what's going to happen is we're going to get some of these very young fans, and they're going to get hooked on this, and they're gonna want the data, Dan. They're going to want the data. They're going to
want to come here and be like, hey, you fucking little kids, come here and listen to this shitty fucking podcast, you little wankers.
Oh my God, I hope not. Yeah, that's not very responsible parenting to let kids listen to our podcast. But
no, but someone I think there was a YouTube comment where some guy was like, I love your podcast, but I don't love having to quickly mash the mute button every time that you start talking because I forget my kids are in the car.
You know what?
Whoever that was, shout yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I feel like we could change that, but then it wouldn't be us. And that would be a disservice.
We talk like they talk in the pit lane. Everyone that works in the pit lane has got a disgusting potty mouth.
Yeah. Very, very true. Before we get into the Spanish Grand Prix, which was Spain without the S for a couple of people. Before we get into that, let's talk about some IndyCar real quick, because we both dove in head first watching the 500, which was a great event. And I've watched bits and pieces of it before, but it's like, right, I'm going to start watching IndyCar races. It's a really, really good product. I mean, the race, it was in downtown Detroit. It's not on Belle Isle anymore. The track was bumpy. It was chaos. It was fucking wild. Shit track. Lots of restarts. And there's one thing I want to get to, but did you see Grosjean getting cooked on Twitter?
I don't think that's a new thing.
No.
But no, I missed it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't see any of Detroit. So this is all you, baby. Yeah,
the race, I thought the race was super enjoyable. There was lots of overtakes, lots of battle, and you had lots of situations where a car would overtake another car, then they'd trade back positions the next corner, get a little bit wide, all sorts of chaos. I mean, and it was a really bumpy street track and shit surfaces. And Grosjean, as far as I could tell, clips the inside of a wall and breaks his track rod, and then understeers into the outside wall and takes himself out of the race. And then this morning on Twitter, I saw that he said, suspension failure. And it was like, there's a huge, huge tire mark on the inside wall that I'm pretty sure is yours. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize. But, you know, smashed the inside wall with your inside tire. That's not a suspension failure.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's just got the timeline the wrong way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it was a suspension failure, but what about the 5 seconds before that?
Yeah, it did fail. It did fail ultimately. Then he had another front left suspension failure when it was inside of the wall. The front wing came off, and yeah, but I think there was a little bit of it might have been Ericsson actually. It might have been Ericsson this time for real. But let's get to the point where I wanted to talk about this. Other than me thoroughly enjoying the IndyCar race last night, probably more than I enjoyed the Spanish Grand Prix. Not gonna lie.
Brace yourself, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna have an IndyCar engine braking spin-off series.
No, it's not. We don't have time for that. But Will Power, I think he finished P2. Good race. After he was impressive. But after the race, he said, "Here's some quotes that I've cropped out of some article that I don't remember where it's from." But he said, It's so tough, an amazing field, the toughest field in the world, and people need to know it, especially compared to F1. Formula One's a joke as far as competition, but not as far as drivers. They've got amazing drivers, and I feel sorry for them that they don't get to experience satisfaction we do with our racing because the top level of open wheel motorsport. I think, and then he goes on to say, we can weigh in on both of these. I think Formula One would be so much better if they had a formula like IndyCar. I love the technology and the manufacturer side of it. I think it's awesome, but from a spectator watching, man, how cool would it be if everyone had a Red Bull? All right, take one. Competitive field. How do you feel about that? Part one.
50%, if not more, of my enjoyment of F1 is seeing what technical bullshittery the teams have come up for their cars. I don't want a spec series. I don't want F1 to ever become a spec series. If I want to watch a spec series, I'll watch IndyCar. And you know what? That's okay. Both can exist. Both can coexist. That's fine.
I think you've home run.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like, I watch that and I see the drivers changing positions back and forth, and I think it's spectacular racing. It's like, great. I like that. And if I want to watch more of that, I'll go watch Aussie Supercars, or I watched the endurance race, the 6 hour at Paul Ricard. I watched that this weekend. That was a fucking blast. But my draw to Formula One is the exact same thing as you. You've got, we've had dominance and all sorts of shithousery in Formula One for ages. And when they change the regulations, somebody comes out on top and somebody comes out on bottom. And some people don't. Some people don't come at all.
Yeah, listen. When they got rid of the barge boards, I had a mourning period in this household. Those barge boards, give me those slabs of carbon back any day. They are grotesquely beautiful, and that's what I like. Shit like that.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So I get it, but I don't understand. I think I don't disagree with Will's comments on that the competition is fierce, but it's a different product in terms of racing and excitement. On a sample of 2, I would rate the 500 and even the Detroit Grand Prix, which some people say that the track sucks compared to Belle Isle, and maybe Belle Isle sucks. I don't know. I enjoy both of them for different reasons. Do I wish that the competition was more fierce in Formula One? Yeah, I do. I'd love to see Lewis, Max, Charles, Checo, Sainz, King George, and the Dark Lord and Lance Stroll mixing it up. I'd love to see that right now, but
someone in the chat rightly says all street tracks suck regardless of the series.
Yeah, but they present different challenges.
The only one that gets away with it, kind of, is Formula E. But I think that's purely because Formula E's never really raced on the proper track, so I don't think we've got much to compare to. Whatever. Listen, I like IndyCar. I like F1. If you like IndyCar and don't like F1, cool. If you like F1, don't like IndyCar, cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
Just vibe.
Somebody in the Twitch chat said exactly. Apples and oranges, they're different products. But from a spectacle point of view, I do say that parts of Formula One I enjoy more, and parts of IndyCar I enjoy more. I'm going to like both of them. Thank you.
The parts I enjoy the most are the shithousery. I miss Toto Wolff and Christian rowing through media interviews. I need that drama back in my life.
Yeah, I know. What about, we should just bring Cyril back. That was good.
Yeah, no, he's busy now, though, isn't he? He's doing something for Hyundai now, isn't he? Doing
exactly. Yeah,
rally program or something.
Yeah. Anyway, let's shall we
bring
move
back Bernie?
Yeah. Oh my God. Let's talk about the Spanish Grand Prix. The Spanish Grand Prix. Talk to me.
Build up. We ought to.
The build up, though. Did you see before we get into that? Did you see the Ryanair Red Bull Mercedes? Oh my God, the social admins got into it. But what was it? A picture of the Mercedes outside the window of the Ryanair.
Yeah, on a crane, like in the air shot.
It's like, don't be mad at us if we lose any wheels. And the Red Bull admin what did the Red Bull admin say? Because that, or it was Haas. No, sorry. it was Ryanair taking the piss. I was like, we'd rather have a Red Bull anyway or something like that. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like a better view to watch a Red Bull run away or something from the field or something like that. Yeah, no, that was... I do like a bit of social media shithousery, and that was a good one.
Have you ever thought about contracting your services as an expert meme lord to any commercial institutions?
I don't know, maybe. Yeah, maybe that could be my tax write-off. My fraudulent activity could be setting up a company that claims to be a contracted meme. What do you call them? Contractor, consultant. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
which I should have known that word because that's what I am in my real life job. But like, chat 29 episodes and my intellectual for fuck's sake,
Dan,
intellectual degradation has been documented across 29 episodes.
Man, but the Ryanair admin goes a little bit heavy sometimes. Like, all right, dude, you're gonna have to wind that one in.
They're working for Ryanair. I mean, Jesus, I'd try and entertain myself somehow.
Yeah, but here's
nice bit of shithousery.
Another bit of shithousery. And Max has done one of these before in the past, right? Max is like, did Ferrari stop? I could hear the wheel guns in the background off of his race engineer's headset. This weekend during free practice 2, he's driving around the track and GP is talking to Max. And here's when you see the race, Red Bull engineers sit on the pit wall. During free practice, Red Bull engineers stand in the alcove, as they call it, which is next to the car. And so it's basically, you've got performance engineer, you've got Helmet, who sits on Max's side, and you've got GP, the race engineer, and maybe like an engine systems guy on that, so they have access to the car and driver. And he's driving around, GP's talking to Max on the radio, and he's like, is that Helmet's phone? And the reason he could tell that it's Helmet's phone is probably because it's an old Nokia brick and he had the ringtone on. He's like, hold on, Helmet's busy playing Snake in between session. It's like, oh yeah, that's got to be a Helmet phone.
As soon as I heard that phone go, I was like, fucking, that's Marco. the familiar tone of like, you know, right when your granddad's got a super loud ringtone because he's deaf as fuck. Yeah, it was like those sort of vibes. It was like, Jesus.
Oh my God. But like, I remember one race, I can't remember where it was, but it's like one of the people on the comms team was sent up and down the pit lane looking for a charger for a Nokia because like they lost Helmet's only charger. He left it in the hotel and it's like, fuck's sake. That shit kills me though. Oh my God. But
yeah, and every time you move, I think I've told this story before, but every time he moves positions in the garage, you have to update his fucking what do you call it, his radio,
the intercom preferences,
because he can't fucking do it himself.
I mean, to be fair, those Riedel intercoms are kind of a
dark art. Yeah,
if I was on that pay grade, I'm not touching a Riedel panel. I mean, as an engineer using them, fine. I just call the Riedel guy. I'm like, hey, can you give me these channels? And like, that's a secret channel. It's like, nah, I'm kind of a big deal. Give me the secret channels. And they're like, okay.
You're smart enough to always stand in the same position, so you don't have to fuck around with that.
Yeah,
whereas he's just Marco's magical mystery garage tour. Like, who knows where he's going to perch up next?
Yeah, it's like, which panel is he on? 6A? Shit. No, I had that one set up for the engine guy. No. Anyway, we digress. And that's the end of the episode, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.
Just kidding. Steiner got yellow carded by the FIA. Oh my God. So Steiner gets summoned into a hearing. What happened, dude? Talk to me. This kills me. This tickles me so hard.
Me too. And for a good reason, and I'll tell you at the end. Right. So Steiner got called up by F1 or FOM, whatever, because in a Monaco interview, I believe it was, he basically asked for F1 to use full-time stewards who are permanently employed because he feels that the decision-making is a bit inconsistent. Now, I think that's a fair point, and I think I think we can all agree that, yeah, sometimes it's not great.
Yeah, and that seems like it was concise and clear and constructive. It's like, hey, this is kind of a problem. Here's a suggestion. Because the stewards are volunteers, basically. I'm sure they get their flights and shit paid for, but it's just like usually old drivers, old race stewards. and that's it. And it's just like a revolving door, and like then they don't seem particularly consistent to us on the outside. I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like they're relatively inconsistent. We'll get back to one of those inconsistencies later from this weekend alone. But
yeah, I mean that fucking proved his point, didn't it? But his particular grievance was related to Nico Rosberg getting his Monaco penalty.
Hulkenberg.
Sorry, yeah. Who did I say? Nico Rosberg.
Yeah, I was like, did he park it on the escape road at turn 5 again in qualifying?
Sorry, Nico Rosberg came back for a one race special with Haas. Apparently, by making these comments, he is alleged to have breached 3 parts of the FIA's International Sporting Code. Now, don't worry, listeners. I fucking read through this, so you didn't have to. Point 1. Acting prejudicial to the interests of any competition or to the interests of motorsport generally. Point number 2, causing moral injury or loss to the FIA, its bodies, its members, or its executive officers, and more generally on the interest of motorsport and on the values defended by the FIA. And then point 3, misconduct towards officials.
Going back to point 2, man, MBS did plenty of that on his own. Well, actually, it was him doing that to FOM, which owns the rights to the series, or is the rights holder effectively. But I don't know. I don't buy any of that. They were basically saying what you cannot do is talk bad about the FIA, and it's like, you guys do kind of suck sometimes. But
yeah,
what
I don't have a problem with him issuing his discussing his grievances. I think that's only fair. You should be allowed to do that. But the greatest part of all this was the summarization. So I think it was. I don't think he got in trouble for it in the end. I can't remember what the exact outcome.
It was a reprimand.
A reprimand. Thank you. But one of the points in there said that the FIA accept that Gunter meant no offence to anyone, because if he did, he would have used a very different set of words.
I'm gonna fuck smash you fucking idiots.
I just thought that was great as part of his defence. He was like, I didn't mean to offend anyone. If I wanted to, I would have used a lot different vocabulary. That
was the equivalent of, don't you know who I am? Is that in a nutshell? That
was brilliant.
That kills me, man. That kills me. Oh. Going through the rest of the weekend leading up to qualifying, we had somebody mention the P word, and I was just like, somebody mentioned the P word. Which P word is it?
I can't remember which driver it was.
It was the Mercedes were bouncing quite a bit in turn 14. Yeah, and like, yeah, it's like this. You know, it's like when the journalists get caught up on a buzzword, and you literally have to waterboard them to get it out of their mind or something. But it's like anytime anybody sees a bump on a track, you're like, it's porpoising. It's like, no.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of that.
That's what the suspension does. Like, so when there's like bumps on the track, like it absorbs those, and sometimes the car moves. It's called a car. I was just like, okay, I have to turn this off now. I turned it off basically.
Yeah, but Spain's got quite. It's not a very flat surface in Spain, is it? It does have quite a lot of undulations.
It does, but in 2 or 3 years ago, they did resurface it, so it went from being relatively bumpy to smooth in terms of lumps and bumps, but also still quite a high wearing circuit as well. But in the final corner, there was some a little lumpus, a bumpus, and there's a little bitty bibbity bobbity bouncing as well. So yeah, a couple cars did look pretty dog shit there as well.
I didn't hear any mention of it other than like the FP1, FP2 sessions. So either they all just got on with it, or I don't know.
At least nobody mentioned anti-dive on the broadcast today, because otherwise I would have lost my shit. Nobody did that. Thank you guys.
No.
Now, if anybody was watching and they watched the broadcast, they saw some pictures. There were some tires running around the circuit without any branding or stickers or labels on them. What's that about, dog?
Those were part of the 2 sets that each team got on a Friday of prototype Pirelli rubber, and they are the Silverstone spec onwards that we're getting. So I believe it's like different sidewall construction, perhaps something like that. I don't think they've officially said what's different about
They've
them.
said construction in general. Compounds don't change. Construction does change to give them a little bit more scope for dealing with loads because, as we take the piss every episode, imagine a Formula One car getting faster. But I think the cars are not as slow as they thought they'd be because they did think that they would slow them down a bit. So
yes, but by stiffening the sidewalls, you kind of do change the compound a little bit, or at least the way it behaves. Anyway, I'm not going to go down the fucking rabbit hole of fucking
let's not.
dynamics and things like that.
Well, you should ask Twitter what they think, honestly, because I feel like you might get some really creative answers there.
No, I don't need to ask them. They'll tell me. That's the good thing about Twitter. They'll just fucking tell me. I don't need to ask. So yes, sorry. Here's a good sort of question, because a lot of people might be thinking like, what's the fucking relevance of this running a prototype tire? And you, I would suggest, are probably a good man to ask, being a former race engineer. So what can you learn from this sort of thing? What's the purpose behind it?
Well, the one thing I noticed is that sometimes when Pirelli give you a new tire, people are like, let's just get rid of it as soon as possible in P1, which is not a bad idea to do. It's like, yeah, we ran it. We'll gather the data for it. You can go. What they'll probably do if it's a new tire construction, they've probably run it loads and loads on the flat track, which is like a tire dyno. It's like a big arm. It puts loads and spins the wheel, and you measure all the forces off of it. And then they'll, after they've run them through several cycles and endurance tests, they'll cut the tire open, check the integrity of the belts and everything through the thickness of it. But teams can probably learn a little bit. It's like, hey, Pirelli say this tire has the same vertical stiffness, so the ride height should be similar. You can then go and see, do our lasers say that this tire is the same stiffness as the normal tire we're about to run? That's good information for you to know if it's slightly different. So you'd be like, oh, in Silverstone, we need to add 0.5 mil of front ride height back into the car than what we would have done, which is tweaking. But that's useful. They can see warm up and everything else. But the tires in general this weekend, I think, as a whole, like you saw it in qualifying with the cold track, is like, what's going on is a little bit wild. Free practice 1 and 2, probably a little bit better. But a few teams did even elect to long run those prototype tires in FP2, which means they gave up learning for their race preparation in order to get a little bit of how's the deg on this new prototype construction. So teams were definitely taking this seriously because they're coming in Silverstone. So, yeah.
Yeah, like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So
you might as well take what you can learn about them now at Spain, which is, a lot of testing has happened there in the past and things like that. It's a good test track because it has a little bit of everything. So, yeah, it was like a free little test session for them on those tyres, and why not? They got a good set of data to work with. So, yeah.
Here's an interesting question on that point from Mark in the chat. Is genuine question because I don't know how these things work. Mercedes and Ferrari are testing 2024 tires this week in Barcelona. Besides gathering data, do these two tires also provide a sneaky chance for them to test their current 2023 cars? Yes and no. Usually how Pirelli tire tests work like this is you give Pirelli your setup sheet at the beginning of the day, and you submit that to the FIA, and there's an FIA representative usually in the garage, and you cannot change the setup of your car. So you run a known configuration that you ran probably from the weekend, and you're literally gathering data for Pirelli. Pirelli will give you the run plan. Are you doing fast, slow, fast? Are you doing high fuel? Are you doing a camber test? All of that. Will the teams get something out of running their car more? Yes. Will it have a significant advantage in their preparation for the future events this year? Probably not very much. Will it give them a chance to learn about next year's tires? Possibly. But whatever Pirelli roll out with next season will be quite a bit different to what they're testing this weekend, probably. So is that a massive advantage?
I was just going to add, all the teams are invited to participate in these tire tests. It's not, they don't just go up to Ferrari and Mercedes and say, hey, you two. All the teams are invited. So for this one, I think it's Ferrari and Mercedes, but then maybe later in the year at Hungary or something, Red Bull and Williams might do it. It's everyone's invited. And I don't know if it's still the case, but I believe that all the data that was generated from these tests gets sanitized and distributed to all the teams for fairness.
Yeah, I don't remember what subset, like they're not sending around car telemetry, for example, but in terms of lap times, what the test item was, what the comments were and feedback. I think all that information gets shared across the team. So it might sound like something sketchy, but yeah, also ask F1 Twitter because they probably know better. Oh my God. But no, I think it's not something super sketchy. Now, if you were to do a private test with Pirelli in like 2013 and not tell anybody else about that,
oh Jesus,
you might gain an advantage from that, but that probably has never happened. I don't know. You'd probably gain an advantage from that if you did a private test that nobody else knew about, and you got, I don't know. I think you might gain an advantage from that. You might.
Listeners, I am shaking my head at this shocking revelation.
You might. But anyway, let's talk about qualifying. The dance.
It was a bit of a not a shit show, but it was certainly action packed. There you go. There's a nice little buzzword for you.
You know what? This was the kind of shit show that I can get involved in because I enjoyed it. I thought, you know what? The best thing, we say this last time. The best thing that I enjoyed about qualifying is I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know what was going to happen. Was Max going to get pole again? It looked like that was probable. Fine. Remove that from the situation. Everywhere back from there. Ain't no way that I know what's going on. So let's start with Q1. We lost a soldier there in Q1, a real competitor. Oof.
The Dark Lord himself, Fernando Alonso, hits a wet patch and sends it through the gravel. Decides to pepper spray the underneath of his floor with gravel, which results in some damage.
But like you saw that throughout qualifying, the rest of the session, every time he was back in the garage, the mechanics were under there with tape and bonding glue and scraps and bits and pieces trying to get the car back together. And that's the kind of thing that you can do during qualifying. It's like, right, we're not changing the car, we're literally unfucking the car because it's in bad shape. I remember Max used to do that a lot in free practice one. He just send it over some curbs or into the gravel. He's like, what? It's like, it's free practice one. It's a wet, cold track. He's like, yeah, 98% seemed about the right amount of pushing hard. And it's like, yep, there goes our only new front wing for the weekend. Back to the shitter. Don't worry, we're going to finish P5 anyway. Because of the advantage.
Get the heat guns out.
Because of that advantage from that 2013 tire test, the unsanctioned one.
Oh, Jesus. We're going to get Toto's going to give his solicitors to us in a minute if you carry on.
That's fun. That's fun.
Lots of people were losing it around sort of T10. Sorry, turn 10. I went into fucking
robot.
Yeah, I went into fucking pit lane mode then. Sorry.
Did you get your clipboard out for the check the tire pressures?
Oh, what a fucking nerd. But that corner, again, listen, I know people looking at this, watching live and on YouTube will look at me and think, I'm not a man that was built for speed. I was built for comfort, right?
Yeah.
But once upon a time, believe it or not, I did used to run around tracks, right? And Spain was one of the ones I ran around. And it is very deceiving seeing it on TV and actually being on the track in person. So that turn 10 has got like quite a weird little bit of camber to it.
Yep.
And turn 10 is scarred in my mind because that was where Gasly had his infamous crash at Red Bull during testing in 2019. 2019. From the future.
I don't remember that at all.
Weird corner.
I switched off during testing after 2018 because I did the testing. So my last season was 2017, right? But because Hugh was having a kid or something, he was having a kid. So I did Melbourne. So I did winter testing and then I ran the show car the day after. But that's the last time I remember going to Spain. And I've blanked all the winter testing. It's like somebody's been the car. Nah, forget about it.
Yeah, you too busy getting smashed somewhere, weren't you?
Nah, I was in the simulator, just in a dark room, listening to all the simulator and it's making beeps like that. That's my pulse disappearing and my soul leaving my body at the same time from that dark room.
Okay, there you go. Thanks for that, ladies and gentlemen.
I should be paying you guys for this. This is like free therapy.
But one of the victims of this sort of turn 10 area was Nick de Vries, and I think he like spun out twice on the same corner, and he came across the radio quite dejected and sort of said to his race engineer like, what am I doing wrong, or what can I do differently? And I thought that was another good question that we should ask you, Blake. what could Nick have done? What advice could you have given Nick in that situation?
Well, honestly, what I would say is I'd look at the simulations and I'd look at what happened, and then I'd look at Nick and just be like, can you keep the black stuff on the tarmac, please? That would have been literally the advice. Just keep it on the tarmac, mate. But on a serious note, I think a lot of people, that's probably all I would have said, honestly. But on a serious note, a lot of teams looked like they were struggling with warm-up. Again, we had this in last race. People alternating their tire preparation. You had it in Melbourne, especially. Remember, Melbourne was another one of those wacky, like, just wild card qualifying sessions. Again, cold track teams struggling to get the tires switched on. Parts of the track were also damp. Was it the turn 5? A couple people had a little spinala at turn 5. Checo did that one, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, later in the session. Yeah, so yeah, keep the black stuff on the tarmac, avoid painted lines, and make sure your tires are up to grip. And
use race engineering, because Yuki was doing quite well. So in like real time, could you look at Yuki's telemetry, or do you only get access to the driver you're managing? When
performance engineers are looking at both drivers' telemetry simultaneously, so if they're both live on track, I'm watching both of them as they go. If they're out of sync, I'm looking like, right, what has he done? But the most important thing that you'll do in like Q1 is you'll be looking at your tire temperatures, and the driver has the targets on the dash. It's like, right, my target is, they obscure it. They'll give him target +5 or +10 or whatever else, right? But, it's like, now my target's 0, which is like, 80, 90, or 100 degrees Celsius. All right, target 0. Okay. The engineer and driver should be looking at that and feeding that back. And maybe they're not sure. They're like, well, the tires are in the window, but they're not producing grip, because it's actually a weird one. Just the carcass temperature is not an indication alone that the tire is ready to generate grip. And if I tell you any more, I will get a cease and desist letter.
Yeah, we're going to lose listeners if we go too far down the tire rabbit hole.
Yeah, but anyway, so that temperature is one thing, and they're going to be monitoring that. But yeah, you'll be looking at what's, he'd be looking, if I was his engineer, his performance engineer, I'd be like, right, what is Yuki doing to warm up the tires? Is he going higher top speed? Is he using DRS or no? All sorts of little fine details, and those are important. And you see teams that are properly fucking switched on. And I think hats off to my buddies on the Red Bull cars. Those guys, the performance and race engineers, are very, very switched on and adaptable. So. Oh, right.
Well, thank you for that. And,
sorry.
And while you're at it, could you hit me on the fraud files, please?
Hold on. I think it's this one.
F1's wackiest rumors, theories, and conspiracies. On this episode of the Fraud Files.
Talk to me.
We need to talk why Mattia Binotto was spotted late or early Saturday morning banging spanners on the back of Charles Leclerc's car.
Oh my God.
Causing issues every time he turned left.
Oh my God. It's a me.
What the fuck?
Mama, you've mamaed your last Mia gearbox. Oh my God.
Oh, yes, Charles. Charles. What do we say about this? I mean, the guy was complaining about his car in FP3. They still had issues with it into qualifying, struggled with the tyres, went wide on the first run, then had some issues with the brakes. Someone looked into this as well and said that he was visibly losing time every time he went on a left turn.
Yeah, I think that's interesting of itself. And there's a lot of people said, guys, obviously just look at the left turns and figure it out. It's like, honestly, if Ferrari haven't because if let's say that there's something broken in the suspension, the chassis is broken, depending on the degree of how broken it is, you can see a lot of things. Like you would see that the mechanical balance or the way the roll couple is, the difference in left to right push rods, for example, would look different versus roll or other metrics. You'd be like, right, something's broken. There's something asymmetric. Like usually when those things happen, you can see them.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, right?
It depends. Like, because back in the, there's all those old stories of Raikkonen. It was like, oh, my chassis is broken. They didn't spot it. But there's enough good information and models running in the background that you can check that things make sense or don't make sense. And you can highlight discrepancies. And I think they're probably equipped for that, big man. But if they haven't spotted it,
Have they got the facilities for that big man?
I ain't got the facilities. Banato says, so yeah, that was an odd one though, because he was in the race. We'll talk about the race in a minute, but the qualifying was like, who is this? What is this car? Who is this driver? There's nothing. Yeah. Yep. But anyway.
So yeah, sorry, that was our big loss from Q1. The big surprise, I think, was old Charlie boy getting that
was wild, man. That was wild. Q2.
Yeah, Q2. Sergio Perez is continuing his form of having incidences in qualifying. Although this time he got a promotion from Q1 to Q2. This time it was Q1 in Monaco.
Yeah.
Now it was Q2. He went wide.
Yeah, you got it.
Wide, fuck's sake, at turn 5 on his second push lap in Q2. Went through the gravel, and he basically fucked it, so he couldn't do another.
Yeah, so he aborted that lap and tried to go again, but the tires were screwed after going through gravel. But I think that was maybe touching a little bit of the painted curb on the entry, or somebody else did that there for sure. But it sucks, man. It sucks so much because going into Monaco, he had his Rosberg shot at this championship. Genuinely, nobody could say that he wasn't going to continue it. And then it's super unfortunate in Monaco. That sucks to see, especially somebody it's like that sucks to see in Monaco. And having an okay recovery drive here, but you need to be if you're not on the pole, you need to be P2, especially when that car is fucking well clear. Like the car is clear. End of. So Perez, also another victim of the very strange track circumstances, but that's not all we had in some strange circumstances in a this isn't a fraud file, so I'm not gonna do it.
No, hit it, go on, fuck it, let's just go
for it. No, it's fine, we'll do it. Wait.
F1's wackiest rumors.
All right, we'll start there. Russell King George at it again.
Out. Yeah, King George sat out of Q2. Nico Rosberg got into the car and immediately decided to do some payback for Spain 2016 by getting in Lewis's way and having a little bump with him as they were going down the main straight.
Bloody Nora!
Yeah.
And but the funniest thing about this whole thing for me is I was watching it back. Russell's DRS doesn't shut. He doesn't touch the brakes, because if you touch the brakes, your DRS automatically comes off.
Absolutely.
Bro just drifted straight into Lewis Hamilton and just accelerated through the terrorism. He was like, no, I'm not going to brake for any of this. This is fine. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, it's like what? Just Rubbin's racing, baby. But here's my take from that whole thing. Like you said in the notes, like the team didn't tell Lewis or George what was going on. It's like, hey, by the way, you're both starting push laps. So if it looks like they either didn't have time or they mismanaged it, because you do not start a timed lap side by side with your teammate. Like that's chaos. So somebody on the pit wall saw that. It's like, should we just let this happen? You know what? Let them figure it out.
I think there was a miscommunication. Like, again, this is fucking F1 Twitter. They love to get themselves upset over things like this. But
bias.
Sainz had just finished his hot lap. George moved over to avoid him, who was going on to his push lap. And in that time, Delta are slowing down to get out of the way of Sainz or whatever. Lewis managed to sort of pull up alongside George, and it was just a bit messy, really. But yeah,
I think that's one of those things. Like, I don't think it was that deep. I think that was not a driver mistake. That was an operational. It happens, and you don't want to see it, and they don't do that very often. Which, I don't know.
Yes, but.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The George Russell terrorism tour has made its Spanish stop.
It was.
He's back.
It was a good stop, and we've got. You know what he did? Actually, did some counter terrorism in the race, and we'll get back to his counter-terrorism attack. But man, qualifying 3, Gasly gets investigated for impeding twice throughout the session.
He's done well here.
He's done twice. Then what happened? Max thought he was on a slow lap rather than a push one. He got a 2 instances of 3-place grid penalty, taking a P4 to a P10. Like, you can't do that. And that is another operational error. During qualifying, the race engineers are literally, when you're on a cool lap, you're like, right, all the race engineer needs to be doing is watching that. And if they don't have that, then they need to have somebody else, like a strategist or someone else, or someone in the ops room that can have capacity to watch gaps. Because if your driver is getting hit with a 6-place penalty for impeding drivers on hot laps, that's an operational issue. That's not a driver issue, in my opinion. But did you see Alonso ratting him out so hard? He's like, oh, there's, Alonso's like back in the back and sees it happen. He's like, there's no way that's not a penalty. Oh my God. It's like, fucking hell, Alonso. But Alonso has so much fucking CPU that if he can find a way to fuck somebody else over or make sure that they get a penalty that's deserved, he will do it every instance, because they there's very likely they would be racing Alpine, and they need to get more and more gaps to them if they can. So
he is the personification of the phrase, don't hate the player, hate the game.
He is that man. Don't hate the player and don't hate the Dark Lord while you're at it. But yeah, I mean, Max's gap to everybody in that session was absolutely... Was there anything in that session that, like, you're like, wow, that was... Other than the chaos, the qualifying session talk?
In all of qualifying, it was probably just the Ferrari. Like, Charles's Ferrari with the upgrades, and then there was like this weird thing after, I don't know, I didn't see this on official Ferrari source, so this could be wrong, but they said that, we've run out of time to check Charles's car at the end of qualifying because of Parc Fermé and breaching the curfew, so we're just going to go home. What? He's P19. Just break the fucking curfew, change everything at the back of the car and start in the pit lane. It was such a weird statement to make.
I don't know what the state of that is right now. Like, how many curfew jokers do you get now? I don't know that. Because before, you would get
2,
a couple of...
I believe.
Okay, yeah. If it's still 2, then why don't you burn one of your jokers? You've got... But at the same time, they're like, fuck it.
If you break it, again, I'm prepared for this to be completely wrong. I've not checked in a good few years. If you break it, it's just a monetary fine.
Is it really?
I believe it used to be.
Okay.
I don't know if it still is, but even if they've used all their jokers, just pay the fucking 10,000 euros, mate, and just get the car sorted.
Yeah. I don't know what the repercussions are, but it sounded like they couldn't find what it was, and they didn't want to commit to a chassis change overnight.
Which is why, in the end, they pretty much did that anyway.
The whole back of the car.
Yeah, they changed all of the rear suspension, which when you change the rear suspension on the back of the car, you're pretty much fucking changing everything anyway. You get gearbox and God knows what else.
Reset up the car, check everything, in which the setup systems on F1 cars are now pretty good. The processes are great, but yeah. Here's a good one. Red Bull's gap in qualifying to the closest competitor. Red Bull's gap was about 0.7% to the nearest car, which was the Ferrari of Carlos. That is the biggest gap that we've seen between P1 and P2 this season, and that means everybody else was behind them. In terms of outperformers, McLaren made huge improvements, but relative to the pole, everybody went backwards except for Haas do this thing where they're on it, off it every other weekend. This is one of Haas's on weekends, despite being seventh fastest team at 1.4% off pole. Aston Martin, massive underperform. Ferrari, massive underperform. But that group right there was super tight. So it doesn't matter. Like if there was a couple drivers that just put like half a tenth together, you change the whole order, this whole thing massively. So this is another one of those weird shakeups
as well. When you mentioned McLaren, we completely forgot Lando got P3.
Yeah, I mean, did you see when Max, when the 3 cars pull up at the end of qualifying on the P1, P2, P3 signs, Max does a visual double take when he recognizes that Lando's up there. He's like, "You're right, mate.
What the fuck is this?
You okay? Everything? What happened?" Oh my god, that was wild. That was freaking wild. But why don't we have a little quick word from our friends real quick before we get into the race? So stick around for the race and check this out. This is for you guys. All right.
Boom. Hello, it's me again. Just to tell you that we are continuing our deal with NordVPN to give you an exclusive offer. You can get it by going to nordvpn.com/engine to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. They have a super simple app that you can use on your phone, your tablet, your PC, and it's something that I've used myself for years, and I've been completely happy with it the entire time. And it's just in time to get around that potential geographical restrictions for F1 TV. Obviously, I can't say you should do that because that's probably illegal, but you know. So yeah, go to nordvpn.com/engine so me and Blake can feed our families. Thank you. And listen.
Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, listen, if you want a VPN and you've not done it yet, bloody hurry up and do it, because a little dicky bird has told me that they're changing things up in July. So get it done now in June.
And and I don't have kids, but I need to pay for Sterling's vet bills. So appreciate you guys. A fist bump there.
Yep.
Let's talk about the race, man. Talk to me, Goose.
Signs at the race start gets bullied by Verstappen.
We'll come back to that. And I did foreshadow Russell committing an act of mercy, an act of counterterrorism. He actively avoided the shenaniganry and drives around the outside of turn 2.
He does, but we also forget that on the formation lap, he bins it and puts it into the gravel. Did you see that?
I missed that. What? Formation.
When they're going to the grid, when they were going around to the grid, he just, I think it was turns 5 and 6, around up there. He just basically fucking went straight off into the gravel and then back onto the track. And
Bloody Nora!
Yeah, I put a prediction before the race started. I said, this race, right? Mercedes are going to get a double podium, and everyone was just like, "Mate, you've just said that," and George has literally just driven off into the gravel on the formation lap. I was like, "Oh, it's gone well."
But he did. He's done it. Oh my god, that's wild. But he basically, it's getting pretty crowded at turn 1 on the race start, and he bails out on the escape road. So we've also got Norris ding dongs Lewis's rear corner. Norris loses a front wing end plate and ends up spinning the rest of the race in the bin. But Russell comes out quite well from that. He's up 4 positions on the race start, which is massive for his recovery drive from the depths.
And
so
it was noted that he gained an advantage. But if you go, I don't believe they showed it, but I went back and looked. If you watch his onboards, he followed the procedure. He took the escape road. He joined back in after the cone.
Yeah.
You know, if he gained an advantage of it, it's because
they did the
track
fucking
designers didn't fucking do a good enough job with the re-entry point.
Yeah, so he goes from 10th to 8th on the race start, which is of the other guys that are starting in the back. So we've got Leclerc starting from the pit lane. We've got Sergio Perez starting from P11, and George Russell saves his race by getting 4 of those sheds out of his way immediately. But did any of the broadcasters or anybody give Stroll the proper acknowledgement that he went from P5 to P3 on the race start as well, and he held up Lewis for quite a while also?
I don't really think so. All I will say is that, of course, Lance comes out and has a good weekend when in the last episode we were talking about Lawrence firing him. So, I mean, another opinion piece from us that's aged like fucking milk.
Yeah, but it's okay. He got absolutely mugged by Lewis on lap 5 or 6 or something anyway. But, you know, Lewis and Lando take that. And he got his elbows out on the race start. I've said this plenty last season. Lance sometimes maybe has those moments where, does he have any awareness? And we're like, probably not. But he's got a little bit of that killer instinct, man. In terms of being aggressive, it's just if he had a little bit more pace, he could capitalize on that. But
he has these flashes, these moments where you think, actually, he's not a bad driver, and then something silly will happen, and then you're just like, yes, I forgot it's Lance.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm not surprised when I see him do well, and I think it just kind of went undetected that he had a great race start, but did not have the pace to hang on to it. The Mercedes were clear. Red Bull this weekend, he could have literally one-stopped the race but he was just like, the hard tire sucks. And then towards the end of the race, Hamilton had to do another stop, and Max was like, yeah, I'll cover. I mean, Hamilton did soft, medium, soft, and they're like, this medium's a bit sketch. Why don't we put on another use soft to the end? Like, yeah, okay. And Max is like, oh, I've got a 40-second gap now, which is, I need 22 seconds for a stop. I'll put on a soft as well. But
yeah, I mean, Max just went from the start. He went side by side with Sainz into turn 1, and then that was it until we finished the race.
Yeah,
it was just like, okay, see ya. It was like, what, 10 seconds by like lap 5 or something ridiculous. I was like, okay, cool, this is done.
Yeah, well, why don't we, like, here's the thing. I feel like Max just needs to listen to his engineers a little bit more. Max starts asking GP towards the end of the race. He's like, what's the fastest lap? And GP reminds him, he's like, you've got a warning. One more track limits infringement means you get a 5-second penalty. And yes, we've got, 20 seconds in hand, but we don't want a penalty. And Max is like, understood. So what does he do? A lap later, he goes, green, purple, purple or something. It's like, right, I'll have that. And GP's like,
right,
all
can
right,
you bring it home?
in the white lines?
In between the white lines. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
GP's just like, God fucking damn it. And they're like, he's like, I'm sure he's looking at Christian on the pit wall. He's like, I'm trying here. And Christian's like, I know, I understand.
Yeah.
But we have this every now and then. We'll come back to the fastest laps because I've got an interesting point from the fastest laps. But let's dig into Ferrari. Sainz. Let's start with the headline. Sainz converts a front row P2 to a P5 on merit, and Leclerc does pit lane to P12 outside of the points.
Yes.
Oh my God, that hurts.
Was it not? Sorry, I'm going to be controversial here. Was it not actually a P11 after Yuki's penalty?
Oh, fine, a P11, but like on merit.
Anyway, outside
is a P12.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went back and watched the race again today, and I watched it with multi-viewer. We got multi-viewer. If you're not using multi-viewer, what the fuck are you doing?
Multi-viewer for F1, Google it. It is completely legit. It lets you see all the onboards. This is not a plug. They don't pay me any money. They just have an amazing product, and they change the way that I've viewed Formula One. You can see all the onboards. There's a timing screen. There's a telemetry screen. There's track maps, radio messages. There's even an AI driver radio transcription. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. If you have F1 TV Pro and let's say real quick, if F1 TV Pro is not available in your region, if you refer back to our sponsor, they might be able to help you with some virtual plane tickets. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
It's the only way to watch Formula One. I'm sorry.
Yeah, every time I watch a race, I get the Eurotunnel into France and run F1 TV Pro. Oui. Tu es un beau décollecté. I think that means something. Anyway.
I don't know.
What was I? Yes, watching the race again. I was paying particular attention to the Ferrari, and Charles obviously went on hards at the start, which I didn't think was a terrible strategy.
Go long, drive through, have a little bit of tire life because you should have a pace advantage. Absolutely.
But his pace is nowhere, and he's just stuck behind. Is it Gasly he was stuck behind, or Piastri? One of the two. He was stuck behind for ages at the start.
Yeah, I think it was Gasman.
And then they just basically elect to bring him in on lap 17 or whatever to put softs on.
But here's the thing: a lot of people saw that and like, what the fuck are Ferrari doing? But that's not that thing. It's like, yes, the optimum strategy on the hard was to stay out longer on the hard, but when the hard has that little performance. Well, you're not just going to tell your driver, don't worry, Charles, this is the good strategy. It's the hard. He's like, I'm stuck behind a car, which is, realistically on pace should be 3 cars slower than us. So they basically just had to get off of that tire because like, right, this hard tire is fucked. We're going to go.
Yeah, and they put him onto the soft and...
They weren't going to.
Oh, were they not? What were they going to do?
They were going to put him on another hard. And he says, what? No way. So that's the thing that bothered me the most, is that they wanted to put him on another hard, and he has to override them. And he's like, no, that tire's terrible. Put me on the soft. And then he does a stint longer than that. Yeah. I caught that using multi-viewer. using the text AI. I went through and checked that.
No, they boxed him and they brought him back out into a clean bit of the track. So I thought, okay, right, fine, that makes sense from that sort of point of view.
He wasn't it really like, yeah, he came out not really in clean air. He had to fight through that. Like, he had to go through the Alfa Romeo.
When he came out, Gasly was literally right behind him as he came out, didn't he? And then Gasly like immediately overtook him again. And then he was just basically fucking sat behind Gasly again. It was like, great, cool, GG.
Yeah, exactly. He basically couldn't make any progress past the Alpine. That's Leclerc's entire race, is that. So interestingly, though, there's a lot of speculation on the Twitter nets. He fits a new hard tire at the end, and he's okay on it. Like, their pace is not great. He's equal with Sainz. But the thing that I speculated is that he possibly couldn't put enough energy in the hard tire at the race start to get the tire working because the cars around him, he couldn't overtake them. So he's sitting there doing something like, 2 seconds off the pace that he would be doing on the hard at low fuel at the end of the race. And the tire's just like, that's not enough energy to get me working. Even Max on his middle stint was like, this hard's not good. And they're like, right, well, we could stay out or we could just put you on a new scrub soft. And he's like, yeah, send it, mate.
The track temperature, again, this is something I picked up on the broadcast today, was 10 degrees lower than what it was when they did their long runs on the Friday as well. So that may have changed things
absolutely
somewhat.
The track actually started relatively warm, which is at the start of the stint, which goes against what I've said. But at the end of the race, the track was very cold. I think it was 30 or something. I might be misspoken, but it's definitely, the race conditions were substantially colder. Yeah, exactly. Last year was like 50-ish. So.
Yeah. But something was not right with that Ferrari. Whether the upgrades haven't worked like they should have, but there was just no pace in that Charles's car, and Sainz's pace wasn't much better in his car either.
No, they had some serious issues. That was just like not an ideal race. Aston Martin, I don't think we need to spend too much time on them. The only thing I will give Alonso is he was on a recovery drive as well, and he's like, I'm not going to attack Lance. He wasn't even using DRS when he was within his DRS window.
Was he not? Okay.
I think for a couple laps he just pulled up to him. But yeah, they looked like they took a hit this weekend as well in terms of relative overall performance.
Yes, but apparently they've got a big upgrade coming in the next race, Canada. So let's see what becomes of that. But yeah, no, Aston were pretty anonymous this week.
Ooh, speaking of, guess which driver was the closest to full throttle through the final corner in qualifying?
I know this because you said this on Twitter, I believe, and it was Lance Stroll.
It was Sir Lancelot. He's so dreamy, almost flat through turn 14. Oh my God.
Almost flat. Give me those maple syrup pancakes.
Whoa. Yeah, but they had a bit of a crap race. One to forget. Hopefully they find some performance. But I feel like this was another one of those. Ferrari struggled here. Aston definitely looked a little bit in the mud. But let's talk about Mercedes. As Paul DeRest would say, Mercedes. In general,
Bloody Nora.
In general, they looked like they made some improvements. The qualifying was a little bit of a mess, and I don't think that was a true indication of what they got. Their race pace, solid second fastest this weekend. Checo didn't come through traffic enough to be a threat to them.
Yeah, they made the softs at the start last forever. I think it was like 27 laps as well, wasn't it?
It's wild. Yeah, they went very long on those softs at the beginning. Their pace was good, but I want to talk about something a little bit more serious in terms of performance, and I need to talk about George Russell's perspiration levels inside the car. At one point,
it was raining at turn 5, apparently.
Yeah, at one point, he comes on the radio and tells them, I've got spots of rain on my visor. And they're like checking the feeds because you can see all the other cars, right? And they're like, are you sure about that? And he's like, maybe it's just my sweat.
Yeah, I liked how Christian Horner, there was like after that radio message, there was a shot of him with his hand like trying to feel for rain, and it's just fucking George shithousing everyone.
That is funny. But you know what? Since we already confirmed that Nico Rosberg took control of George's car in qualifying.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
What Nico didn't tell him is Nico has an old trick for sweaty races. He would basically use a women's sanitary pad in the inside of his helmet to absorb the sweat in wet races. Like, he's like, what? It's a sanitary pad. There's nothing wrong with that. It's to absorb sweat. That is literally a Rosberg thing.
I forgot about that.
Do you remember that? And they're like, what? And he's like, no. But like, honestly, if he's an athlete and that's real sweat, enjoy it.
If it works, it works.
It does. So yeah, that's the race. I mean, race result. What you got anything else before we get to because I want to talk about the overtaking regulations.
I want to say that obviously sucks for Lando. He had a nightmare in the race.
P17 in the end, that.
Yeah. From P3, it's like the opposite you want to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Backwards.
Yeah, sorry, Mercedes fans. Beat yourselves up. Feel good. I think the upgrades have certainly made a good improvement. However, I don't want to be a negative Nancy here, right? But the W13 also looked really good in Spain last year.
And it was also good in Canada.
So
next race.
Don't count your chickens just yet.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. Like, when I was watching the race, I saw that Max did a fastest lap attempt and Lewis did a fastest lap attempt towards the end of the race, right? And I was like, holy, that thing looks quick. And I'm like, okay, it's 0.3 off. That's, okay, maybe in race pace they found it. Then I went back and looked at the laps. Lewis had 0.4 of DRS down to turn 1 on that lap. So I'm like, okay, well, there's 0.7, which there's a lot of context around that. I had somebody on Twitter this morning who's an expert says, you've got to consider a lot of things. I was like, I did consider a lot of things. And I also made a caveat that, yes, you need to consider things. But, oh my God, I almost lost full this morning. But, the Red Bull are still clear. I'm not sure that we've even had a sniff of what Mercedes upgrades are worth. And they're only going to find more. So it's promising.
It's going to take a little bit longer to get the definitive answer if Mercedes are moving in the right direction.
Sure.
But look, hey, it looks good so far. Let's just see if it carries on. I was going to say something else, and I've completely forgotten. That was it. So, in 1988, not only was I born, so obviously a great year, but McLaren took the record for most consecutive constructor wins of 11 race wins in a row.
Ooh.
We are now at 7 with Red Bull.
Ooh.
Is it safe to say that that's getting smashed?
No, it's never safe. Because you might underfuel in qualifying and lose the chance to win Singapore.
And chat are going absolutely insane because they've just realised that means you're older than me.
Yeah, I was 3 in 1988. My younger brother was being born.
I'm just old and fucking haggard, whereas Blake's quite fresh-faced.
But I'm also dead inside, so I hide it well. Takes one to know one, doesn't it, brother?
Yeah.
But right, let's talk about penalties during the race. Tsunoda on lap 56 gets a penalty for forcing Zhou off the track. And I think the guidelines, let's review the guidelines of overtaking. There's basically 2 sets of guidelines that the stewards will consider. They will not use it as the book. If you're overtaking on the outside of a corner, you need to be slightly ahead at the apex, and that will be considered one of the criteria to say the driver had a right to that. I went back and I went back and watched it. Verstappen should have had a penalty on the race start. Sainz was ahead at the apex roughly, so maybe they said, but it's lap 1, so be it. Fine. And then Zhou was alongside or slightly ahead at various places through that corner, and they deemed, but they weren't massively different. But both Sainz and Zhou dipped out of that. And I don't know, man.
A lot of people were like, if you're going to penalise Yuki, why are you not penalising Max? But I'm almost certain that this has been written somewhere, and you can go and look for it, and I promise you'll find it, that they're more lenient for lap 1 incidents.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why. It's just because it's lap 1, turn 1. They're a bit more lenient with what happens.
Yeah. But I mean, like
cold tires, full.
The idea of like, oh, you have to be ahead or behind at the apex. So it's like, no matter what happens, like you could be close and maybe not. I don't know. It's like, oh no, that's your penalty now. Like, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I don't want drivers forcing other drivers off the track. If it had been into a wall, that would have been a different story.
You know what? I'm sick and fucking
I'm so
tired
fucking bored, man. I'm bored.
I'm not towing the company line anymore. Bollocks to it. Yuki has been unfairly treated. I'm starting the hashtag free Yuki movement.
Yep.
Give him back his fucking P9, you pricks. Listen, my man's been done over.
He's been robbed.
He's been fucking robbed. Bollocks to this. I'm sick and tired of being sensible and taking the company line. Fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm just so fucking bored of
Your
this.
rules are bullshit. Just let them fucking race.
You know what? And if they don't like it, let them fucking fist fight at the end of the race. Let them fucking have it, man. I'm so bored of this shit. I'm so bored of it. It's just like, and then
NASCAR drivers are fucking giving each other free dental health care in the pit lane afterwards, man.
Yeah.
And you're whinging because his tyre went off the side of the track on a fully painted runoff area.
You know what?
Fuck off.
Willpower was right, because some of the wheel-to-wheel in that IndyCar race, they're like, that's pretty cool. You know, it was a fucking melee, but like, it was like, oh my God, oh my God. And like, yeah, at some point, somebody's going to give Max some tough love, and he's not going to like it, but you know what? So be it.
Let's fucking race.
Give it to him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you got to do with Max. You just got to dish it back to him, and you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hated that mainly because I want Yuki to do well, but I just thought,
I'm just bored because like every time like somebody does a slightly wrong thing, Twitter's like, oh my God, what did they do? Let's have a conversation. It's like, that's not even fucking intelligent conversation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm done having discussions. I don't care. My opinion is correct.
Yeah,
End
fuck
of
them.
story. I'm done. I'm done negotiating.
Fuck them. Right, let's talk about our predictions before the event. Let's take stock here. We'll like put ourselves accountable. The qualifying top 5, Dan, was Verstappen, Sainz, Norris, Gasly, Hamilton. What'd you go for?
Correct. I went for Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, and then I forgot to write my other 2 down.
I think you had Mercedes
I
up
can't
there.
remember what I had.
I think you had the Mercs up there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I had Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Alonso, Russell, and I could not have been further from the truth. That was, again, and that's one of the things I do like about this. That's one of the things that I do like about this is that qualifying session was not predictable. Did it make the race much better? No, but I don't think it was a bad race either. For let's call it what it is for Formula One standards of racing excitement. That one wasn't bad. There was stuff going on the whole race. Not a bad race.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, sorry, I'm going back down the tyres route.
That's fine. Let's go back.
It was cool to see there was actually lots of different viable tyre strategies at this race.
Oh man, let's pull up the notes. We had medium soft, medium hard soft. We had soft, medium soft. We had hard soft hard. Yeah, you had one of everything. You had one of everything. It was mixed. I mean, if you stopped 3 times, that's not great. But yeah, mixed 2, 3 stop. Or if you're landed, I think he stopped like 30 times or something. No, it's just 3. Okay. I agree, man.
No yellow flags either or anything like that.
You know what would have been fucking juicy though?
Oh, I swear to God, if you're going to say rain.
Yeah, rain or a late race safety car.
Oh, I'm fucking... Mate, I'm jumping ahead here, but every single weather reporter that said they were getting rain at Spain is going on fraud watch.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
They spent the entire race wanking themselves off saying it's coming in 10 minutes, it's coming in 10 minutes. It never fucking came, did it?
Yeah, you know who's not coming ever? You.
Exactly, yeah, you fuckers.
Race podium. Who did you have this weekend? The actual podium was Verstappen and then a Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell.
Yeah, I believed. I fully went for the number 33 hype and put Alonso to take the win.
Yep. You got the other 33, unfortunately.
Yeah. I got my 33s mixed up.
Yep.
I put Verstappen in second. And then I'm really sorry, Ferrari, but I put Charles in third.
Unlucky. I went boring. I did Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton. And yeah, it coulda, shoulda, woulda, ain't gonna. You know what? I was really happy to see one of my old colleagues. I'm not gonna name drop him specifically just for him, not because I don't want to, but one of my old buddies who worked on the engine side, worked with us from Renault and then came to Honda. He was up on the podium, got to get hosed down by a couple legends and take the constructors trophy. If you listen to this, you might. That made me really happy to see, man. Nice work. Nice work, brother.
Pick yourself up.
Yeah. I just I know some people don't want to get name dropped, so because all you're gonna have is a bunch of really excited race fans in your inbox, like, oh my god, have my babies. That's how it works when you're Formula One famous. Just everybody's just on you.
Yeah.
On you.
Speaking of people in F1 teams, we're going way back here, but
roll it, rewind.
The spare chassis that was getting rolled through the pit lane.
Oh yeah, people like Red Bull are changing Checo's chassis. They weren't.
Yeah, and Callum was just like, no, we're just fucking putting it back in the truck.
So if anybody to phrase that right, there was a picture online, and one of the paddock people in the paddock posted pictures like Red Bull are wheeling out the spare chassis. Yeah, they were wheeling it out of the garage and putting it back into the truck to get ahead for pack up. So during the race weekend, in certain places like normal racing circuits with normal garages, you do have enough space. So the spare chassis is back there, like under some shelves or boxes in case they need to wheel it out quickly. You don't have to go out to the parking lot to get one out of the truck and roll it through the paddock and cause a fuss. They were just putting it up. We got excited, and Callum was like, F1 Mech on Twitter. He was just like, you fucking dorks. I'm like, I'm sorry, Callum.
Yep. Pick yourself up, Callum. But you've been in his DMs, haven't you? Trying to convince him to come join us.
Yeah, he said, I'll see you guys in December. I'm like, all right, we'll see you then.
Yeah, he's not going to get a moment's peace until December, so it's only fair we wait till then.
Yeah. Why don't we go through, I had a couple questions on Twitter. You want to go through them real quick before we get to our random fandom report?
Yeah, hit me up.
Right. Who has the best anti-dive from Lewis Bones? Dan?
Who has the best anti-dive? Oof. I reckon probably Lawrence Stroll. I reckon he could really look after himself in a fight, and no matter how hard you hit him, he's not taking the dive. So yeah, no, I think Lawrence Stroll.
I reckon Zach Brown, honestly. Like,
you reckon?
Yeah, he's like dive bar. He's had a couple tall boys. He had a tough race. He's got skeletons, man. For sure.
Bollocks. Zach's all talk.
Yeah, fine. All right. Who has the best anti-dive? No, I'm not gonna say that one. So Mizoi11S says, why has McLaren look so good in qualifying, but we're absolutely nowhere in race? Because that's what they've been good at all season, unfortunately. Simples.
Yep, setting up your car for a one lap over setting up your car for a race.
Or setting up your car and just everything going to shit as soon as it turns Sunday. It's just the day of the week. It's the Sunday that it goes bad, not that the race is there. Cars on the Street asked, will the Merc upgrades solidify second World Constructors Championship for them? Can Aston's Canada upgrade get Alonso back on the podium?
Maybe.
I think I would answer those. Solidify, no. Can it get him on the podium? Yes.
Yeah, too early to tell.
Right. Ninjas asks, not related to the Grand Prix, but I've been thinking about Liber Media pushing for the show more than the tech. Red Bull so far ahead, I'm sure doesn't make him happy. Would you see more spec parts level the field like Indy does? And if so, what would you spec for all teams? Any thoughts on that? Because it's not.
I probably would actually.
He's not saying spec car. He's saying more spec parts.
Yeah. Would I spec parts? I would, but it wouldn't be aerodynamic. It'd be really boring shit. That's like steering wheels, gearboxes, something like that. Yeah. Something that's not really going to, make a huge amount of difference, but it will help the lower teams if they can just basically buy a spec part.
Valkyrie in the chat asks, didn't Aston Martin ask for a spec gearbox? And they did. And we talked about that through the week, and I think it makes 100% perfect sense that you'd spec the gearbox. And Aston Martin have a more political reason for asking for spec gearboxes, because since they're going away from their Mercedes partnership in 2026,
They're going to lose gearboxes.
So they basically have to come up with a gearbox department or find somebody that will sell them a gearbox that will mount to a Honda power unit. So
do you know who could sell them a gearbox that would fit to a Honda power unit? Red Bull.
Yeah, they could.
I think people are unaware just how much stuff Red Bull can actually sell and does sell to other teams.
Yeah, so I think boring stuff like gearboxes, spec brake discs and bells, spec uprights and hubs, as long as you had flexibility to package like your own cooling and your own winglets and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you want to make an impact on the show in terms of the racing, you would need to go to spec era. You know, in terms of to make all the cars roughly, if, like you said earlier, if you had and I don't think it's the right thing to do. It's not what Formula One is. If you like that, there's so many other series we can watch. Let Formula One be that place where all the technology and development comes together, and the racing is what it is, and it's a product of man, machine, engineering, design, the whole thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see it go spec aero.
No.
That's part of the fun games for me. I like to see everyone's wild interpretations of the rules.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I like this way it is. Scratch Acid on Twitter says, why doesn't Max obey his engineer? Because he doesn't fucking have to. And he's like, you don't need the fastest lap. And he's like, bitch, I'm taking that fastest lap. I admire it. Like, doesn't give a shit. So be it.
Yeah, it's quite an amusing father and son relationship, I think, between them, which is quite funny.
GP just sounds, he's like, you could just hear him just under his breath, fucking not again. Every time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I always used to call the race engineers to take the piss out of them. They're clipboard holding, tire pressure, monitoring babysitters.
Yep. And
a lot of their job is very heavily dependent on their personal skills and relationship with the driver and operational stuff. So it is what it is. Yeah. Just real quick, Naveen Agarwal says Fraud Watch nomination, which we're going to get to in a minute. Ferrari replacing Binotto with Vasseur, who is nothing except for the pit stops. He's improved nothing but the pits. Fair enough. I don't know. But like, you can't expect just to swap out a team principal. Like, we're good now, don't worry, because the team principal, like the things that the team principal's in charge of, take a lot longer time to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm done with that. Fuck that. I'm turning up the toxicity to 11 and saying that they need to sack everyone again.
Okay.
I've had enough. I want to see a competitive Ferrari. And I want to see it without an illegal fuel flow meter.
Well, why don't we get into our next segment? You got a little beep beep for that.
Random Fandom. Boom. Welcome to Random Fandom. This is the part where we show we can hate all the teams equally, despite our disgusting Red Bull bias, by basically picking a team at random that we're going to hype up and do a book report on after every race.
Sick.
And this week for the Spanish Grand Prix, I got AlphaTauri.
Ooh.
Without further ado, AlphaTauri, pretty average Friday. Did some prototype tyre testing and long run practice like the majority of the teams. Weren't happy with the pace on the softs. However, amusingly, Nick de Vries did go P4 in FP1. Qualifying turned into a bit of a mess with a lot of the teams due to the changeable weather. Both drivers had some spins and damaged their tyres. Yuki had a good lap in Q2 that probably would have got him into Q3, but sadly deleted for track limits. Nick de Vries P14, Yuki P15.
That doesn't sound like something that Red Bull's sister team wants to aspire to achieve, does it?
Race-wise, Tsunoda had a good start, found himself running in the top 10. Big up AlphaTauri, they got a bit ballsy and tried to undercut during both of his pit stops, and it worked out quite well for him.
Cool, lad.
Holding on to 9th, but then sadly the Zhou move into turn 1. Tsunoda ran him wide off the track, got him a 5-second time penalty, which dropped him from P9 down to P12.
Free my man Yuki Tsunoda. This is bullshit.
De Vries was completely average this race. He just couldn't keep up with Yuki, but he stayed out of trouble as well. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, fair enough.
Weekend-wise, probably a missed opportunity because I reckon they had a package strong enough for points and being closer to the midfield in qualifying.
Oof. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, I just don't think that's where Red Bull want the Red Bull sister team to be. They want to be scoring them points every weekend, and it just seems like a struggle. I don't know what it is, but anywho, I had Mercedes this weekend. Friday looked rough. 6th on Friday overall. Struggling getting qualifying. Hamilton ended up P5 and Russell P12, so not bad for where I thought a Mercedes would be in qualifying. P5's not bad. The qualifying ding-dongs, they had some communications fall apart during qualifying from the drivers colliding with each other. But I think Sunday, they did an excellent job on Sunday optimizing the race. Russell had an outstanding start, kept his nose clean, avoided, bullying through the shit fight, made up 4 positions. Hamilton had one of those thankless races, He's just flying through, cruising, maximizing the points. Not to take too much away from his qualifying race in terms of pace or upgrades. It's hard to say what they're going to do now with those. It's the first proper race on a new configuration of the car. Weird track conditions, temperatures, and tires. But, they were closer in Monaco and Australia to pole. But again, I don't think this weekend's qualifying performance is indicative of that. Good execution. Ferrari didn't show up. Aston didn't show up. And they did not drop the ball. Both Hamilton and Verstappen attempted fastest laps. And then I went through that earlier. Hamilton looked like he was super close, but there's so many caveats to that. I think we still haven't seen the full potential of that package. I gave them a strong B+, almost an A weekend, honestly. With the exception of that qualifying shenaniganry. Yeah, that wasn't too clever, but realistically, I think more George was struggling in that one. And yeah, fair enough, I think. But if you have nothing further to add, I want to introduce you guys to our next segment.
Fraud Watch.
Right. Fraud Watch is a segment where we put somebody on blast every weekend. We've got a couple of repeat offenders that are in Fraud Watch jail. And they're going to compete for the Ferrari at the end of the season. We got McLaren on there, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Ferrari are on there. And that's it. That's the only people with 3 strikes each. Who have you nominated for Fraud Watch this week?
Chat, listeners, this is...
Are you about to get emotional?
I think it's time that I admit this week on Fraud Watch, I am nominating myself, ladies and gentlemen.
No way.
I said back at the start of the season, Nico Hülkenberg was the wrong driver for Haas. He was mid, he was washed, and he had no place being back in F1.
He was old.
It was a pointless, uninspiring signing. I still believe some of that. However, I did say after 3 races, I would say if I was wrong, well, I went just to 6 or 7 races. I finally decided, listen, I was wrong to slander Nico slander. Nico slander? I was wrong to slander Nico Hülkenberg. There we go.
I understand. I forgive you.
That is the first and last time I'm ever apologizing on this fucking podcast.
Okay. Well, it's funny that you've put yourself on Fraud Watch, because I've also put myself on Fraud Watch. Any long-term listeners to the show, at the end of every episode, we do big up our nans, our local butchers, and so on. I got sausages from Morrison's, and they were shocking. So I was on my Traeger grill this weekend, and I was like, I'm going to grill up some zucchinis, courgettes for you weirdos,
Thank you.
and some sausages. And these sausages were so bad. Morrison's doesn't sell meat. Speaking of, did you see the tweet from PETA this morning or yesterday? And it was like, you wouldn't eat a Tyrannosaurus, would you? They're really closely related to the chicken. I'm like, people just kept replying
probably would.
Yeah, people just keep replying with like dino nuggies and stuff. But yeah, seriously.
So, me for slandering Nico, you for disrespecting your local butcher.
Let's move on to the next segment real quick, because I know we've kept you guys for a little, but you guys, I'm sure you guys are loving it, right? So let's go to...
Oh, who's a good boy?
I am. I'm a good boy.
So, what is Engine Mode Good Boy?
Engine Mode Good Boy is like our thing of the weekend. It can be a driver, it could be an event, anything that basically happened at the Grand Prix or related to it. So I'm going to go for a chap called Chris. Now, I didn't get your surname, my apologies. But someone spotted, I think it was FP3, there was a crowd shot of the crowd, obviously, and then someone sent me a message like, have you seen this? I swear there's someone in the audience in FP3 that's got an engine braking logo on their shirt. Lo and behold, it was. So I put out a tweet saying, like, is this you?
Identify yourself. I want to congratulate you.
I want to big you up on the pod. And so, yes, our mystery man, Chris, revealed himself, and he went and got himself his own merchandise printed and wore it to the track and got it on the TV coverage. So big yourself up.
That is insanely on brand, because only us shitters would be so crap as to not have any merch. Yep. And our crew are like, you know what?
We'll just fucking make our own.
So I think we might have to get some engine braking shirts done. Leave us a comment on YouTube on it. Or Twitter. If you're interested, let us know. Gas it up and we'll get them out to you. We definitely need the fraud shirt. We definitely need the engine braking classic. But Chris, we appreciate you, homie. This week, I am going to give the Engine Mode Good Boy Award to Jean-Pierre Lambiase for putting up with Max's bullshit every weekend. It's just like a thankless task. It's a thankless task. It's like, man, can you just like not do that fastest lap thing? And he said, fuck you, man, I'm doing it. But he did get the Grand Slam. Every session, qualifying, every lap led of the race, and fastest lap. Wild. Yeah, I don't have the stats, but there's a couple of other impressive stats of the number of Grand Slams that. But yeah,
40th race win as well. There you go.
Ooh, P40. Yeah. So when I left the trackside job in 2017, into 2017 was my last full season. He had 3 wins. Fucking wild. Fucking wild, man.
Look at how they've grown since we fucking left.
Indeed. So, what do you got coming up for the next week? I've got some plans. You got anything coming on? Because there's no race this weekend. There's no F1 race this weekend. There's something else this weekend, though. And that is...
the Grand Fromage.
The
24 hours.
100th anniversary of the 24 hours of Le Mans. I will be out there from Friday. I'm going to take my camera and record some stuff, but I'm not doing content. I'm just chilling.
You won't. Not in a negative way, mate, but you'll be too busy drinking and having a good time.
I will.
And that's what you should be doing.
I will.
Don't stress out over it. But yeah, what are you doing on business or pleasure?
Pleasure. 100% pleasure. No work lined up. I might reach out to a couple of friends that are in the paddock there to see if we can come say hello, show them some support. But other than that, honestly, I'm just looking forward to go hang out. Joao, friend of the podcast, he's coming out.
Is he out there? Is he?
He's out. My girlfriend's coming with me. His friend is coming, and we're just going to get smashed up, run into some friends out there. Nice. Jamie Price, if that even is your real name, we'll see you out there, Joker. And quite a few other people, honestly. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll be watching from the comfort of my own home.
Hell yeah.
Actually, that's not true. I'm actually going to go to a watch party with a few other content creators.
You're going to watch some 24 hours of The Mans?
I am. At a private barbecue venue.
Ooh, that sounds lovely. That'll be really fun.
And I'm not telling anyone who it is because they'll lose their goddamn minds. So you'll have to wait and see at the weekend.
Is it Lewis Hamilton?
No, but it's some of them are Lewis Hamilton's biggest fans.
I know who it is. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Well, awesome. Are you gonna have any iRacing streams coming up?
Maybe.
Yeah, we need to figure it out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the NASCAR. That thing is so fast, man.
So, I'm having an office move.
Oh,
soon.
are you? Wait, have you got the new office sorted?
I just need to finish the internals of it, and then we are having a move.
Ooh.
And we've also got some sim kit as well.
Have you got some stuff sorted?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hashtag ad? Or hashtag
No, off my own back.
hashtag fucking that's me throwing dollar bills. That's Dan doing some
That sounds very awkward,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
it? Yes. Oh dear, put that in the fucking sound.
I think you're busted now. But yeah. Right, ladies and gentlemen, take care of everything. Have an awesome weekend. And yeah. Don't shop at Morrison's for their sausages. They're terrible.
Big up your local butcher. Tell your mum you love her. Big up your nan. Check in on your mates. And fuck off.